There's going to have to be a bit of investigating going on, because one of the aspects of running a computer in a automobile is occasionally you get some downtime. So if you want the short version of what's going to happen today, it's me fixing the computer in the boot of my car. And if you want some light entertainment for the next 10 minutes and 20 seconds, go ahead and feel free to watch the end of the video. Driving along, just click, no sound, computer not responsive, amps fine, sound cards are fine, as far as I know, just no network activity from this computer, so I've got to dig it out at some point in the future, and this maybe happen one other time in a 5-year period. I think maybe there's a power supply issue inside that computer, and might have to get a new one, so we'll have to look into it. But yeah, that's what you get if you want to mess around with fancy plugins and stuff. Well, we'll look into it. Step 1, unplug everything. Step 2, try and get a HDMI cable. So HDMI cable showing me that we have a BIOS default screen presenting, that's why it's not booting. So it could have been a flat battery or a bump in the connection of the memory of the motherboard, or could be other interesting things. Okay, so it's got the right year, so I think all of our CMOS setups are going to be good to go. And it's also on silent fan, which is a setting I left it on. So I'm just going to try and exit this mode and continue to boot. Okay, so this is the little unseen actual boot screen, which is, it's a headless computer, so it has no monitor usually. And what it's going to do is load all my presets. It's got a couple of old drivers in there. I have a batch process which deletes any log files from Ableton Live, because that often destroys a boot, and something has destroyed the boot and it's behind that one. Anyway, so I've switched back to my network session on my tablet just because I couldn't get a mouse and a keyboard into there, so this is the quickest thing I could think of doing. So it all looks like it's going to work. Have to make sure the time is set right, because this always goes into standby mode when I'm not listening to music, and so you listen to music say for an hour a day, in 24 days it's only thinking 1 day has passed. I know, it's pretty silly, because it's always asleep. Right, so now we're on today's date. The reason it has to be on today's date when I start live is so that the plugin authorizations work. There's a legit one in there that complains about the wrong date. Alright, now I have to go and plug in all those things I unplugged, like the sound cards and the trigger inputs, and I was just freeing up all the ports I could, and see if the DSP that we've rigged up still works. Of course, it's loads the default set, which is my last known good tuning that I've saved as a default. Okay, it seems that the more things I plug in, the more I seem to get the sudden stop, and this is a charging light from USB from the computer. When I attempt to boot, charging light goes off. The computer tried to boot once, then just stopped mid-boot. And as you can see, the charging light goes out, so I think the power supply in the PC is expired, exasperated, extinct. It's happened one other time and I just recapped a few on the main cap, so I guess we have to pull that whole thing out now. If I do the power supply pull, I'll probably just pull this, is it that one? It says SSD. Oh, it says 2 SSDs there, but there is actually a SATA drive that's not listed. Oh, here it is, SATA. I'm going to pull that one out. Even though it says it's there, it might just be into failing. That could be causing things. And see what all the voltages are like. Don't know if that's good, being yellow. We'll find out. So 2 more steps forward. Haven't had to pull anything out just yet. Got a few boots where I was only getting 1 sound card, not 2. Now I've got 2 sound cards just by pulling plugs, pushing plugs back in. Let's see what we get this time. Matty face. 176. kilohertz. And start a track up. Track. I'm rooting for success and not crash. Hopefully it was just a little gremlin and not a big problem. As we wait for the sound card to boot, the main amp will start drawing heaps of power. That's the Super 2 and the bass starting. And that's the main amp starting. But a relief, I put on my ultrasonic resampling filter, and that's Apple 24-bit dither removal from 16-bit material. What else is there? Check the volume. Oh, I've got to plug in the MIDI device, which I unplugged. Alright, it's functioning. Full function, fellas, ladies, chillets. And we're not using the fancy mic, we're just talking on the phone today. Okay. And scene. Yep, so it definitely turned off 5 songs into a drive, and then didn't turn on straight away, so it's definitely coming out for a bit of an inspection. A bit of a teardown, see what's going on. Looks like a bit of an autopsy here, but the patient still has a heartbeat, and we're only really taking out this bit, more specifically this bit, putting in a fresh one of those bits, and making. I'm thinking of maybe trying out an AC standard power supply and running that as a conventional PC rather than a DC PC, because it really is just, it's all the same from there on back, and we'll go back to looking schmicko, believe it or not, and we'll just quickly put it all back together. So out with this old little fella. It's probably 7 years old really, plus the recapping I did, and it came with its own power supply cords, which I have to remove because they're unique to that unit. Now I'm getting this old power supply from that old computer that you saw on the left, because everyone's got spare computers lying around, right? Yeah, well, I do, a couple. So different power wires in, 12 volt for the CPU. That's the Corsair unit there, the RM450. I'll probably just have to buy another 400 or 500 watts for the old computer if I need to get stuff off it. And a bit of a test fit here. It seemed to stick out a little bit more internally, so I had to do a bit of wiggling around. This is the old SATA drive. It's a mechanical one, and there's the SSD one, which is the main system that it boots off and everything. And a quick test boot off AC, just on the house AC, and no problems there. And actually the bracket could flip out, and we got an extra 4 centimeters of space. That comes back to bite me in the bum a bit later when I'm trying to get it in the boot, but that's another story. This is why I will never use network CAT cable again in installs, because sure, there are lots of wires in a common sleeve, but you end up with brittle, with these single core network cables, Cat5 or Cat6 or whatever. A lot of them have a single solid core, and just through bending, movement, moving stuff around, they just snap after X amount of times. So yeah, I might dig that one out and replace it, but see how we go. Yeah, so this can test, sometimes be testing, but my idea of one tier for the audio and then a second tier for the turn on turn offs, well, it's a very hard tier to get to, but I need to get to that one and pop it out and put in my nice wires instead of my brittle wires. So testing my patience. Yes, I've got it out here. I did actually have a backup pair that I never used or anything, so it's really just a 2-wire job. This is the montage of me making a wire. Here I am soldering the tips and putting the original male bullet points on to reach that next connector, and we'll get the heat shrink covered over there. The marking I made, which is now R for red, but I just like to put a bit of solder on anything that gets getting screwed into a thingy, and to make sure it's the right size for your thingy. And there you go, job's done on that one. That's one end. That's the other end. Success. Managed to get that one back in, right down there. And follow the red and white up to there. Pop them straight into that female receptacle.